The wind screamed through the shuttered alleys of Chicago's Old South Side, slicing between the brick facades of abandoned factories and rattling the windows of silent subways. Winter had descended heavy, burying the city beneath thick layers of snow and turning every sound crisp and urgent. In this cold, the world shrank, retreating into the warmth of dimly lit diners and third-shift bars, leaving only shadows outside to wander restlessly. On nights like this, Vincent Moretti worked alone. The city was too dangerous for men without enemies, much less for a mafia boss respected and feared in equal measure. He parked his dark sedan beneath the broken lamp at the edge of Humboldt Avenue, the only car in a lot dusted white. Steam trailed from beneath his coat collar as he stepped out, boots crunching across the frozen ground. His gloved hand brushed the snow off a green dumpster, revealing a faded neighborhood tag, reminders of battles long past and unforgotten alliances. Vincent's headquarters tonight was nothing but an old storage warehouse. He had come to check the lock, review cargo, and, truth be told, enjoy the rare solitude. His people called him the Ghost, a man who drifted through the city but was never truly seen except when he wanted to be. Tonight his thoughts were lost in routine until he noticed a small, unmoving figure huddled by the metal fire exit. His first instinct wasn't compassion. The city taught men like him to expect traps. A shape in the dark could mean a rival's child, a warning, or bait for an ambulance call destined for a bloodbath. But this was just a little girl, no more than 6 or 7, her hair tangled, face streaked with tears, hugging an oversized coat with teeth chattering. He knelt, boots deep in the fresh powder. "Hey, what's your name?" he asked, voice low and careful. A gun was holstered under his coat, but he kept both hands visible, a gesture not of surrender, but of reassurance. The girl blinked at him, fear and trust wrestling in her eyes. Small hands clutched a wrinkled note. "Mom said you can help us," she said, each word trembling like her frail shoulders. She passed him the note, a torn shopping list with 5 urgent words, scrawled in rushed letters. "Please help her, don't call police." Vincent's heart beat faster, the implications unfolding. He glanced around, alert for any movement. All he found was the relentless hush of falling snow and distant police sirens, already fading. The girl's lips were turning blue. Without further words, he swept her gently into his arms, carrying her inside the cavernous warehouse. The steel door clanged shut, locking out the storm. Under the sickly orange glow of an emergency lamp, the space looked even colder. Crates stacked to the ceiling, a battered couch in the corner, a folding table with an ashtray and old paperwork, the only sanctuary he could offer tonight. Vincent draped her in an extra wool blanket he found in the back room. He took care, awkwardly but with genuine intent, to wrap the fabric up to her chin. "What's your name?" he tried again. She managed a faint smile. "Sophie." "Sophie, I'm Vincent. You're safe here tonight. Do you want some hot chocolate?" The question came out more desperate than he meant, a relic from days when his own daughter, Isabella, would clamor for cocoa after sledding in the park. As water boiled on an office kettle, Vincent dialed a secure line to his most trusted lieutenant. Downplaying everything came naturally. Bring something warm for a visitor, and check the alley for tracks. Trust bordered on paranoia in his world. His mind raced as he watched Sophie sip the hot drink, her eyes fixed on the mug. Who was her mother? Why send her to him, outrunning both the storm and the law? Connections clattered through his memory, debts owed, deals struck, friends suddenly grown distant. He wondered if the woman whose neat handwriting he recognized was the friend he'd once risked everything for, or a stranger with nothing left but hope. A gust of wind rattled the warehouse windows. Sophie startled, nearly spilling her drink. Vincent caught the mug, steady hands betraying none of his inward turmoil. "Do you know where your mum is?" he asked softly. Sophie shook her head. "She said I had to come here. She said you're the only one not afraid. That hit Vincent harder than expected. There was truth in it. He was not afraid of men, nor of the city. But the trust of a child felt like a fragile burden. Minutes ticked by. Outside, the city ambulance lights flashed somewhere far away, painting the snow neon blue against the black winter sky. Inside, warmth crept back into Sophie's cheeks. She drifted into an uneasy sleep on the battered couch, clutching the mug. Vincent didn't rest. He paced the perimeter, phone in hand, calling in favors and messages. If anyone had seen a woman abandon a child in this storm, someone would talk, for a price, or sometimes just to feel useful. The world of organized crime had its own web, far faster than the official lines. When his lieutenant arrived, Vincent issued orders quietly, never taking his gaze from the little girl. No one comes in or out, except me. She's not to be frightened. Find her mother, but tell no one else. Understand? Yes, boss. He spent the next hours sitting by the warehouse window, watching snowflakes pile on the ledge, mind drifting between past regrets and tomorrow's threats. The city, with all its peril and possibility, pressed in on the glass. Sophie murmured in her sleep, pulling the blanket tighter. Vincent knew his life was about to change. The note in his pocket, the questions in his mind, and the winter outside weren't going anywhere soon. The choices he made in the next few hours would mean safety or ruin, not just for him, but for a girl who trusted him without knowing who or what he truly was. As dawn threatened in the east, Vincent looked out at the endless snow and made a silent promise. Whatever evil waited in the shadows, Sophie would not face it alone. The sun barely crested above the horizon. Only a dull, tarnished silver filtered through the warehouse's tiny windows, outlining the dust floating in the air. Sophie awoke before Vincent, her small frame curled on the couch, shivering not so much from cold as from anticipation. As she opened her eyes, the echo of distant traffic and the groan of pipes punctuated the silence. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Her mind flickered to uncertain memories, her mother's voice, a white scarf, the shadows in stairwells, the promise of safety in a name she barely understood. Vincent sat at the makeshift table, sorting through cryptic text messages and cross-referencing notes. His world didn't allow for sleep, least of all now. The news on his phone screamed of gridlock, weather alerts, minor accidents, nothing about a missing child or a woman on the run. This fact unsettled him more than any threat from rivals. He was a man used to being hunted by those he could see. The invisible, the desperate, worried him more. Isabella used to hate snow, Vincent muttered, glancing up at Sophie. She stared back, uncertain. He immediately reined himself in. The past was best kept private. But Sophie's vulnerability challenged every instinct to remain closed. He poured hot water from a dented thermos, slid a fresh mug across. "You ever been in Chicago before?" She shook her head. "We came here yesterday. I think Mum was scared." Vincent considered the logistics, a woman and child traveling under cover of darkness, risking the wrath of winter and the city. Had she been running from an abusive partner, from law enforcement, or, as occasionally happened, from people like him? In every answer, Vincent spotted a shadow of responsibility. But Sophie's mother trusted him, if not as a friend, then as a last resort. That trust required answers. He rose, jacket slung across broad shoulders, and checked the small monitor hidden behind stacked crates, a live feed from a camera pointed at the alley. No movement, only snow swirling past trash bags and flickering security lights. Vincent turned back, weighing his next move. "I need to know about your mom. Did she tell you her name?" Vincent's tone was firm but gentle, balancing interrogator and guardian. "She said, not to talk to anybody but you. She just said Mom. She called you the helper." Vincent's lips pressed into a grim line. He was the helper. In another life, he'd have found this laughable. The morning passed slowly. Vincent arranged for one of his men, trusted, full of quiet strength, to bring breakfast, eggs and toast, fruit in plastic containers, nothing fancy, but substantial. Sophie's hunger became apparent, and he watched as she ate, grateful yet restrained, as if she feared being caught even doing this. A knock echoed, 2 sharp hits at the metal door. Vincent gestured, and his man entered, carrying not only food, but a backpack with children's books, crayons, and a pair of woolen socks. No detail escapes his notice. To survive this business, one must see everything and question intentions always. He thanked the man and took the supplies, performing casual inspection for tracking devices or weapons before allowing Sophie near. Throughout the day, Vincent tried to pry information from his network. He called bars, diners, safe houses and medical clinics, asked questions without asking too directly. Every conversation was a dance, a negotiation of silence and indirect meaning. Pieces slowly started to connect. A young woman checked into a shelter 2 nights before, left in a hurry, carrying a duffel bag and mumbling about danger. The city, though vast, had ears on every corner. Hours passed. Sophie coloured in a book, occasionally glancing at Vincent, studying him like one might study a mountain, imposingly solid, but possibly safe. Between these moments the tension grew. Outside, the snowstorm raged on, and the city seemed to shrink further into its shell. At lunchtime, Vincent grilled sandwiches and sat with her. He told a story of his own childhood, about immigrant parents and cold winters in Little Italy. His words were measured, revealing vulnerabilities that even his allies rarely witnessed. Sophie's silence eventually broke, not with details about her mother, but with questions about safety, promises never to call the police, assurances that she would not be sent away. Their conversation, quiet but rich in undertones, lasted much of the afternoon. The narrative unfolded in tiny increments. A neighbor who scared Sophie's mom, a car that seemed to follow them, an envelope of money left in the kitchen, never to be touched except in emergency. Vincent realized that the threat to Sophie's mother might be more complicated than a street-level rival or a cop with a grudge. By nightfall, Vincent's networks produced a fragment of clarity. A woman resembling Sophie's mother had been seen in a local pharmacy near the river, bruised and panicked, asking the cashier for directions. The description matched Sophie's vague memories, and Vincent felt the first glimmer of hope that he might find her. He prepared for the journey with meticulous care, ensuring Sophie would be protected, arming a trusted assistant as backup, planning exit strategies in the event of an ambush. The city outside was a maze, but Vincent's world thrived in such environments. Before leaving, he bent down to speak to Sophie, voice warm yet authoritative. "You'll be safe here, Sophie. My friend will stay with you until I'm back. I'll bring your mother home, I promise." Sophie nodded with hesitant faith. As Vincent stepped into the snowy night, the city seemed to pulse with threats and possibilities. Every alley, every light, every quiet conversation, each a piece of a puzzle gradually revealing itself. And deep inside, Vincent wrestled with the old codes of loyalty and new demands of compassion. This storm, he realized, was more than weather. It was change. It was a reckoning, both for himself and for the child who, by fate or desperation, had landed in his care. The city had not thawed. Chicago's icy air gnawed at the skin, and every hour layered another sheet of frost over sidewalks and storefronts, an endless, silent reproach to anyone reckless enough to be on the streets. At the heart of this winter, Vincent's old warehouse remained an island of uneasy warmth, guarded by loyal men and a palpable sense of waiting. Vincent checked his watch, uneasy with inaction. Every passing minute without news from his contacts was a minute Sophie's fate, and perhaps her mother's, drifted further from certainty. He took a moment at the window, watching flares of sunrise reflect on snow-packed avenues and blacked-out cars abandoned overnight. The city was waking slowly, or perhaps only pretending. Sophie's soft footsteps on bare concrete startled him from the reverie. She carried one of the donated books, its cover fraying at the edges, pressing it to her chest like a talisman. "Is my mother coming today?" she asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Vincent knelt beside her, steady and calm. "I'm doing everything I can. Sometimes things take time. In this city, it's safer to move slow." He wished reassurance came easily, but Sophie's expectant stare pressed on the part of him that remembered fatherhood as equal parts hope and helplessness. The day's work had already begun outside Vincent's insulated circle. His Lieutenant Rousseau, a mountain of a man from Belmont with a head for logistics, reported in person, breath clouding the air. "We got word from 2 hospitals," Rousseau said. "No Jane does, but one nurse remembered helping a woman who seemed nervous, left before paperwork. Might be her, boss." Vincent's frustration barely showed. Every half-lead was a sliver of hope and a fresh torment. As Sophie ate her breakfast, Vincent's mind worked through the city's shape like a chessboard. He sent men to check soup kitchens, churches, ER entrances and train platforms. Every call risked exposure, but hesitation could mean danger for Sophie's mother. He forced himself to treat every conversation, as with all enterprises before this one, with careful calculation, shielding both child and secret from unfriendly eyes. The morning moved in slow increments. Vincent passed the time talking with Sophie. She wanted stories, and he obliged with tales partly true, partly colored by memory. He described the city as he'd found it years before. "Once, I was not much older than you. My family, your family, everyone here, came from other places. We had to make it work, even when the city wanted to spit us out." He told her of learning to skate by the river, risking bruised knees and frostbitten fingers, laughing breathless, with brothers both real and chosen. Each anecdote chipped away at the invisible wall Sophie kept around herself. She began, haltingly, to talk about her own fears. Nighttime thunder, shadows moving in stairwells, the way her mother's hands had trembled on the steering wheel. Afternoon brought fresh tension. An informant called in. She was seen by the River District boss. Someone matching that description bought medicine, left west, heading toward the warehouses. Vincent's heartbeat quickened. Every clue mapped a tighter radius. Every new witness, if credible, suggested they might find her soon. He left Sophie under Rousseau's care, repeating the rules. Never open the door, never answer the phone. Rousseau, patient and gentle, sat with her, offering wordless comfort, his presence an anchor in the blizzard of change around her. In his own car, Vincent cut through city streets glazed with ice. He ran scenarios, rivals, police, opportunists, and prepared for every outcome. As he skirted the river's edge, he thought of the woman who had trusted her daughter's life to a criminal with nothing left to lose but his own fragile sense of duty. He found the pharmacy, its heat thick with disinfectant and the smell of floor wax. The cashier was hesitant at first, but Vincent's questions were always persuasive, whether by kindness or the hint of something sterner. "She seemed scared," the woman admitted. "Left in a hurry, coat hardly buttoned, kept looking over her shoulder. Said something about not being able to wait. Someone was coming." Vincent fought to see beneath the surface. Was she running from someone watching the store? Did the mother anticipate a rescue or fear a trap? He retraced the possible routes on foot, slow and methodical, checking alleys and abandoned lots. Every citizen's face was blurred by scarves and hats. Each glance was a small challenge, a polite warning not to get involved. At one point, Vincent spotted a child's mitten in the snow. Blue, too small and too new. But in the end, it was just a city's discarded hope. By sunset, Vincent had spoken to 4 more witnesses: an elderly woman feeding pigeons, 2 men shoveling parking spaces, a teen on a bicycle. Threads connected, overlapped, then dispersed again into uncertainty. Despondent, Vincent returned to the warehouse as the longest night of the year set in. Sophie waited, reading by the filmy yellow light, her body tense with hope and dread. Vincent sat beside her, his own exhaustion painted in the way his shoulders dropped. "She's trying to find you, Sophie. I believe that." His words were tired but honest. Sophie nodded, teetering between faith and doubt. "You won't let anybody hurt her, will you?" Vincent hesitated, then met her gaze with all the gravity he possessed. "No one will get to her before me. On that, you have my word." Later, as Sophie drifted to sleep bundled in blankets, Vincent found himself at the window once again, watching the city's scattered lights flicker through icy haze. He spoke to the night, softly, as if to an old friend. "Don't let me fail her." A new clue reached him just before dawn. A grainy street camera image forwarded by a contact. A woman, hunched against the cold, with Sophie's same curly hair, passing under a broken neon sign 2 blocks west. It wasn't much, but as the first rays of morning pierced a sky thick with storm clouds, Vincent took hope where it could be found. As the darkness receded, the city stirred, and so did Vincent's resolve. The search was far from over, but for the first time since the storm began, there was momentum, one step closer to reunion or reckoning, bound together by the promise of family and the fragile trust of a child who chose, against all the odds, to believe in him. The storm's relentless grip had deepened overnight, with thick sheets of ice now coating the city's streets and windows, turning every surface into a battlefield for survival. The warehouse, a refuge for Vincent and Sophie, had been transformed by time and tension into a stage for reckoning, where hope and fear wrestled quietly in the corners. Daylight crept in, pale and uncertain. Vincent sat motionless near the window, writing lists and notes in brittle pencil. Each line was a lead or a promise, names of old contacts, places he'd used for deals, favors owed, debts called in. After the first cup of coffee, he checked his phone, missed calls, news bulletins about the storm, a police report on heightened patrols. Nothing concrete about missing women or children. Sophie woke slowly, her eyelids fluttering, uncertain of the day or hour. Her hair stuck to the woolen blanket in tangled curls. The air inside was stale, smelling faintly of toast and cold metal. Vincent noticed her unease. He started the day by making oatmeal. "We'll eat first, then you can help me." He kept his voice measured, a careful mix of kindness and command. Sophie perked up slightly. Vincent had realized that routine was balm against uncertainty. Today, he decided, would be different. The city was hiding something, and it fell to Vincent to find it. He called Russo for the morning update. "We got a hit," Russo said. "There's a witness. Someone saw a woman near the train yards, east side. She was panicked, moving fast." Vincent wrote the address down, then called a driver and backup, determined not to let hope slip away. "Sophie, do you recognize this?" He handed over a photograph, a blurry snapshot of the woman in question. Sophie squinted, then nodded. Her scarf. "That's Mum's." The tension grew. Before leaving, Vincent gave instructions. "No one gets in except people I send. Russo stays with you, and if anything happens, hide. Quiet." He dressed deliberately. Layers for the cold, careful holster, a radio clipped to his belt. Vincent exited the warehouse, heart pounding. The blizzard whipped around him, masking footsteps and faces. Each intersection presented new risks. Police canvassing for fugitives, rival crews on patrol, desperate citizens searching for warmth or scraps. He moved through the city with practiced caution, blending into crowds and alleyways. At the train yard, Vincent searched for clues, discarded tickets, forgotten bags, signs of hastily abandoned shelter. He spoke with a homeless man, exchanging a folded $100 bill for guarded answers. Woman came here, she was scared, asked about shelters, left with a man in grey. Vincent pressed for details. Every answer added pressure. Every silence was a potential danger to Sophie's mother. After hours of searching, Vincent returned with news, not victory, but process. Sophie listened intently as he described his movements, showing her he would not give up. The child's faith in him was fragile and precious, and Vincent felt its weight. As day faded into evening, Vincent's phone buzzed. A tip from an unlisted contact. "Your woman's been seen. She's trying to avoid cops. She's at an old church 2 blocks south." Vincent's chest tightened. He called his team, organizing approach routes, fallback plans, all necessary contingencies. Sophie watched him, anxiety plain in her posture. Meanwhile, in the warehouse, Rousseau and Sophie developed a bond, a silent understanding forged in adversity. Rousseau shared stories of growing up in Chicago, emphasizing resilience and the importance of never giving up, a lesson Sophie absorbed quietly. Vincent's journey to the church was fraught. Streets were slick, and the air sharp as broken glass. Inside, he found the woman, disheveled, exhausted, eyes raw from crying and cold. Her coat, recognizable from Sophie's memories, was frayed at the seams, and her hands shook as she clutched a worn envelope. "Who are you?" she asked, voice a mixture of suspicion and relief. "Vincent Moretti. Your daughter is with me, safe." Tears welled in her eyes. She handed him the envelope, a plea for help, a story of escape from a violent man, threats received, safe houses compromised. Vincent listened without judgment, recognizing her exhaustion. He offered water and assurance, promising a reunion soon. The return to the warehouse built suspense. Snow beat down on the city, police radios crackled, and Vincent's thoughtful planning became essential. The escape route, the reassurances, the contingency for betrayal or misunderstanding. Finally, in the safety of his stronghold, he reunited mother and daughter. Sophie ran to her mother, tears freezing on her cheeks, relief overwhelming them both. Vincent kept watch, alert for danger, feeling the magnitude of his promise fulfilled. But reckoning never ended. There were more questions to answer, debts to balance, enemies to appease, secrets to protect. The storm outside had not lessened, and inside, Vincent wrestled with the consequences of his choices. That night, as Sophie slept safely beside her mother for the first time in days, Vincent sat up, eyes wandering the city landscape, weighing every shadow for threat and hope. For now, they were together. Tomorrow promised new dangers, and Vincent, for the first time in years, was determined to defend something, not for gain, but because it was right. Dawn rose silver and unyielding, slicing through the frost that had settled on the city through a night of fitful dreams. Vincent sat at the warehouse's battered kitchen table, cigarette unlit between his fingers, watching steam curl from a mug of plain coffee. Outside, the city was waking, desperately clearing roads, hoping to return to ordinary chaos. Inside, it was the hour of aftermath. The fragile, suspended moment when the storm had passed, but its legacy lingered. Sophie and her mother, Rachel, slept entwined on the old warehouse couch, still fully dressed, as if afraid comfort might be yanked away before it soaked in. Vincent glanced at them, a mix of relief and an unfamiliar anxiety gnawing at his core. His role in their lives, once forced by chance, now felt like choice. Responsibility, awkward, unwelcome, impossible to shed, settled around his broad shoulders. Rousseau made breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, strong black coffee. He moved quietly, massive hands, surprisingly gentle, as he set the table for 3. Vincent sent him out on an errand for supplies and news, determined that the mother and daughter should feel some masking of normalcy, even if only for a morning. Rachel awoke first. The clarity in her eyes had returned, sharp and weary. She sat across from Vincent, hands wrapped around a mug. "You put a lot on the line for us." "Why?" Her voice wasn't grateful, just honest. Vincent hesitated, measuring his words. "Once, a long time ago, someone helped me for no reason. I never paid it back. Maybe this is just settling accounts." He almost smiled. Almost. Rachel nodded, understanding something deeper than words. "You never really settle in this world, you know." They spoke in low tones about the man she fled, the patterns of violence, the false promises of protection, about the police who sometimes helped, sometimes didn't, about the fear of being forgotten or worse, remembered by the wrong people. Vincent listened more than he spoke, the rhythm of trauma and hope settling between lines. Sophie joined them as the sunlight crept higher, and the three of them ate together, silently, but without tension. For the first time, the little girl allowed herself to laugh quietly at one of Rousseau's clumsy jokes when he returned, and even Vincent's face, usually all sharp edges, softened. As the day wore on, new realities intruded. Vincent's phone beeped with news of police moving closer to the south side, of a rival crew sniffing out rumors that he was hiding something valuable, a phrase that filled him with equal parts pride and dread. He made plans, backup cars ready, routes mapped out, money moved, and safe houses prepared. Rachel and Sophie could not remain here. He knew it, and so did they. They packed bags methodically. Sophie clung to her mother, but more calmly now. Rachel repeatedly squeezed Vincent's hand in thanks, their bond forged not in trust, but in mutual necessity. Rousseau prepared the car, double-checking each window, each escape plan. The farewell was not cinematic. There were no promises of seeing each other again, only the recognition that in this city, survival meant leaving quietly, moving forward with the strength one had left. Rachel turned to Vincent, eyes steady. "You saved us. If you ever need—" He cut her off with a shake of the head. "Keep her safe, that's all. Promise me." She nodded, the weight of gratitude and history in her silence. The car slipped away into the melting snow, carrying mother and daughter toward a new anonymity in another city. Vincent and Rousseau stood in the warehouse a long while. Watching the emptiness settle in, Rousseau finally spoke, voice gruff. "You did good." Vincent shook his head slowly. "No, I did what was right, not the same thing." Night fell again, quiet and unfinished. Vincent walked the city's empty streets, invisible once more, carrying no burden but memory. In the underworld, debts were rarely paid off, but tonight he dared to believe that. For one little girl and her mother, a cycle had at least been broken, and for himself, maybe, just maybe, there was another storm out there he was ready to weather differently.